thoughtful ideas and suggestions for guests and topics.
Events, programs, and student activities.
Welcome to this week's segment of Dialogue Houston. I'm your host, Lawrence Payne. To our regular viewing audience, welcome. To those joining us perhaps for the first time here for ACC's TV Dialogue Houston, we can be found now every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. and on Saturday afternoons at 3 p.m. As always, at the top of the show, let me thank you for your thoughtful calls, emails, and text messages for previous shows we've aired, but particularly your great ideas and suggestions for guests and topics for upcoming segments of Dialogue Houston. After all, this is your Community Affairs, Public Affairs show on ACC TV, proudly now in its 29th season. We have a great show lined up for you today. We're going to be talking about the historic Third Ward with a young lady who's now taking the reins of a organization that is going to really, I think, help make those changes. It's none other than Brittany Hyman, who is the new director of the Third Ward Real Estate Council, which she'll tell us all about. So welcome, Brittany.
Thank you, Larry. Great to be here.
It is great to have you on and to be talking about the wonderful Third Ward. So tell us what the purpose of the Third Ward Real Estate Council is.
So our mission is to create equitable access to real estate through education, access to capital, and responsible development.
How much of Third Ward is actually owned by Third Ward citizens, or is it merely a group of outside people who own most of the property and land?
I do not know the answer to that question, but what I can say is that there's a clear shift in demographic. And so from the experience that we've had engaging with different civic groups, different civic organizations, and civic associations for the neighborhood, there's a large rental population. And there are people who have been long-term renters who've been here for generations but don't own. And
right. That's actually what I was getting at.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to come in and take the property over and tear it down and build these townhomes. So I guess, is it fair to say that gentrification is happening in Third Ward?
Absolutely. I think that we have certainly pushed past being vulnerable to gentrification and seeing it actively happening in the community. And I think that so many people are concerned about it. So many people saw it coming, but just didn't know what to do about it. Right. And there's also a misconception that it has gone on and that we're past the point of stopping or halting it or slowing down or turning around, and that's not true. We still have the opportunity to stake our claim for those of us who've been here and who want to continue to be here. And so that's part of the purpose of the work that we're doing with the council.
Right, and I think it's so important that this collective has been put together of urban planners, architects, real estate professionals, all those elements together. So collectively and in a coordinated effort, y'all can do some very good work, I think, going forward.
Absolutely. And those are the sorts of things that we want people to understand. We came together, a group of us, we all live in this community together, and we said, you know what, we have all of these rich resources in terms of the knowledge and the experience that we have. We can put that together and make a difference right in our own backyards. And so you look at a community like Third Ward, and it's full of teachers, doctors, architects, engineers, in our case, urban planners and financial specialists. And a lot of us have been fortunate to participate in and have seats at a table at public organizations and private banking lending institutions. And so we also have that know-how that we can add to the work that we're doing because we understand how it works behind closed doors.
Well, that's very important because all of this comes into play about banks and lending institutions and making loans to community members, the whole banking system, about community reinvestment, redlining, go down the list. All that is still at play, and people don't realize how much that is still at play in communities like Third Ward, Fifth Ward, et cetera. And so to have an organization that understands how that works and sometimes works against the residents and the citizens is a great asset to be able to educate people as to what they can do and what really is happening.
Right. And also to let people know that you don't have to go it alone. If you can pull your resources together, there is absolutely opportunity to invest amongst yourselves and to create that sort of lasting affordability through shared and collective efforts.
Right. If we would learn to pool our money and do collective things that other communities and other ethnic groups have learned over the years, we would be much better off. But right. I think it takes a group to point that out and how those collective sums of money produces real capital. And with that real capital, you can do something with it.
Right. If you think about the history of Third Ward, that's actually how it was created. You had free people who came together and pooled their resources and created a space. And so being able to be reminiscent and mindful of that history and reenact it today, it's very important work, and it's work that we take very seriously. And so, that a lot of the work, Third Ward is an area that's been studied to death. You know,
yes, it has.
Yeah, you know, there are countless plans and things that have sat on shelves for 30 plus years. And so what we've been able to do as planners is take that information and synthesize it and say, okay, we're going to take that and create actionable steps to say, you know, what comes next. Once you get past the plans, and once you get past the input, we don't take that knowledge. We don't want to see it and use that knowledge to pad somebody else's research or to provide value to someone else's work. We want that input, and we want it to be impetus for change. And so we were able to work with the local real estate office, the office of Jason T. Hyman, and take that plan, the plans that have been done from the city complete communities to the Third Ward plans, a lot of organizations and to work with Roberta Barrows and pull all that information together and say, okay, how can we turn this into steps that organizations and individuals can follow to actually create an impact and do what we like to call tactical urbanism.
One of the things that I want to get back to that wonderful word, tactical urbanism, in a minute. One of the things I noticed in the list of, I mentioned a minute ago, urban planners, architects, real estate professionals, longtime business owners, what happened to the churches? The churches were our historical piece. The churches was a piece that brought people together, that educated people, that got community awareness going. It was so glaring to me when I read that list that churches are not there. What happened to the churches? And
so I think there's a space for that. I think that the churches have a strong foothold in Third Ward and have always, and will continue.
Historically they have, but what's happening now? Why are they not part of this coalition?
Well, because I think that there are different ideas around. I think that in Third Ward, you have people and institutions that have been here, sort of gatekeepers of knowledge and resources. And there are a lot of ideas about what needs to be done. There's not always an agreement on how to get it done.
Right.
And so what I will say is, having done this work, both from working from a public agency and now from working from outside, is to say that there have been meetings, there have been opportunities to work together with churches and the sort of institutions that you're referencing. And it doesn't always work out the way that you would hope or the way that you would think that it would. And that's okay, because they have their space. But I think that what we're seeing is a shift in civic engagement and a shift in how it's done.
Right.
And there's a lot of people have a belief that you have to sort of, pay your dues for years and years and years, and then you might get an opportunity to have
a crumb here and there, yeah.
Right, and time is too precious. The valuable resources it's too precious, and time is too short. And so now we're ready to say, okay, we recognize that space, we understand the plans they have, and we will be mindful of it, but we also say there's a space for us who've had the opportunity to work and do it.
You answered that question very tactically, by the way. To say that there are factions in Third Ward would be an understatement.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, many times has held it back. I think that is what have held progress back from things happening. Waiting for total agreement or total buy-in is never going to happen. So what you said is very clear. At some point, you got to decide to move on. You just have to decide to move on and make things happen. And so back to that word tactical urbanism, I think a great way to look at it. You have to choose and pick your battles, pick your issues. As you said, work a plan and work the plan backwards into accountability and transparency, and get as much input as you can. But at the same time, at some point, the old people used to say it's time to cut fish or cut bait.
Yeah.
At some point, you just got to go on. And those who are willing to go, and those who are not will continue to try to bring you with us and bring you along, but we got to go.
One thing about it is the people who recognize the value and who want to come in and say and create their vision, they're not waiting. They're not going to stand in line and say, oh, well, what would you have us do with what we want this land to be used for? That's not how it works. And so you can't, there comes a time where you have to match energy. Yep. And so, yeah, like you're saying, we want to take that know-how and those resources and match that energy and say, there is a presence here. We're not looking for anyone to come in and save or plan for or around. We're looking to say, this is the vision that we have because there is one.
Right.
And we're going
to give us permission that it's okay to move on. And you're going to wait for, I'm sorry, it's, then work that way anymore.
Right.
And I think in today's urban society, that's very true. I mentioned the churches only for this reason, so we can have the conversation we just had, because I understand very clearly that many times, unlike the historical piece, today they sometimes end up being an impediment in moving forward, because there's so vested interest in the way they have done. It's like that old phrase, this is the way we've always done it.
Right.
This is the people who have always done it. This has been the people who have been the leaders traditionally. Well, times have changed and things have changed. And we don't have the luxury of moving slowly anymore.
Right, exactly. And there's the church has played such a critical role in communities. I think that you can be mindful and reverence history, but not be held captive to it. And so I think that in order for any institution to continue to grow, there has to be succession planning, which there just has not been, at least that I'm aware of or that I've experienced.
Oh, good point. Back to this tactical urbanism phrase. I think it's a great approach and a good way to look at this, because I think you have to choose what you want to do in 1, 2, 3 order that shows progress and shows people that you're moving and that you're actually doing something. And so I think being very strategic in what those first steps are and those first projects are very important.
Right. And so there is, in urban planning, tactical urbanism has sort of been this very broad thing. And what we've seen a lot of is when people are saying tactical urbanism. In the past, a lot of people tied that with our streets and with transportation. We're going to create a bike lane for a weekend so people can experience that. Or we're going to, put out some benches so you can see how it feels to have separation from the street. And I think that's good. And there's a place for that. But tactical urbanism is also the piece about education and saying, hey, look, this parcel of land is an anchor. And if we can take this and say, create a use for it before it turns into, like you said, a sea of townhomes, then we can start to build around that and make a strong impact in terms of what best use truly is. And so being able to educate people, being able to teach them investment strategies, being able to suggest books and literature and be able to actually say, I think that right now there are a lot of people who are saying, buy the block, and that energy is so good.
Right.
But if it's not organized, if people don't understand how to do that effectively, and what you find is a lot of splintering and a lot of weakening of what can be really impactful to the community and what true development can look like.
And I think as you developed your projects and bringing people and community together, the idea of that first project you're doing, the 11,000 square foot piece of property, I think the idea of a market, an old-fashioned kind of outdoor market with a lot of components and elements to it, that bring people together and share, as you said, a shared space for conversation, for dialogue, for business in the local community, to get people talking again among themselves. What's possible? What could be possible? What could be done? And to really look at it in a way that engages them in the process, so to have some buy-in and ownership going into it with a sense of this is our community again, and we are the people to make it happen.
Right. And everything about this project, we've been fortunate to get access to an 11,000 square foot parcel of land on Emancipation, which, as you know, was at one point a main business corridor.
Oh yeah, it was hopping. It was business.
Yeah, you have things like the historic El Dorado Ballroom and all sorts of very important businesses. And so the last thing we want to see happen on Emancipation is townhomes. You know, that's not what that is for. That's not what that street is reminiscent of. And so to be able to get access to this lot and say, we're going to use it for the best intended purpose and do it in a way, one of the reasons that we are able to do it and be able to have access to this land is because the previous owner wanted to make sure that something went there that was a value add to the community.
Right.
And so we were able to leverage social capital, which a lot of people don't talk about, especially people who come from outside of the community.
Right.
They minimize or overlook the impact and the value in the people, in the culture. Mm-hmm. And because we understand it, we're able to say, okay, let's work with this previous owner and be able to move in and help with the taxes and get access to the land and start, as you said, developing a space that the community can use. So it will be used for a market. It'll be used to have food trucks, and we'll be able to also have shared business spaces. So that way we can start to incubate other businesses around here. And that's very exciting. And we're in the beginning of the project, but it is already a huge win to be able to have the space and be able to develop on it.
Right. And social capital, after all, is the backbone of any community.
Right.
It is a glue that holds things together and makes things happen.
Right.
And without a vigorous, vibrant social capital environment, it just doesn't happen. As simple as that. Because mm-hmm. those relationships that have to be built, nurtured, and maintained on mutual trust and respect comes out of that development of the social capital.
Right.
As you and I both know, nothing happens without trust. Nothing happens without trust. And those relationships are so important to have and being able to accomplish and get things done.
Absolutely.
Let me move on to, I love the title of this thing, Do the Things That Matter.
Yeah. So Do the Things That Matter. It's our campaign. And what that is we are creating a community and an ecosystem around the concept of tactical urbanism, around activities and actionable steps that support community stabilization. And so what we're doing, we have a group, it's a Facebook group. And that's where we gather everyone together. Right. But the campaign, and so what we do is we talk about all of these things that we're talking about right now. We talk about urbanism, we talk about architecture, we talk about investment, and we talk about it on a level that everyone can understand. Because the job of a planner or an architect is not just to take data and go into a hole and disappear with it. You want to be able to take it and turn it into something relative and right. something that people can actually use in their communities. And planning and architecture has historically been done in a sort of ivory tower. And what we're doing is we're tearing it down and we're saying, here's how you can change your community. Here's how we can work together. Here is an investment, a way that you can invest in this project and be a part of it and have ownership in it.
Right.
One of the first things we're coming up with courses, and that'll be available online, that'll teach different topics around this. Invite other urban planners to talk about urban planning and different topics of interest. And we poll the audience regularly to find out, what is it that you want to learn about? What is it, when you look at gentrification, when you look at community development, what do you want to see? How do you want to be involved? And then give them the tools to do it.
Right. The other group that I wanted to mention, which is probably in some ways in the same vein of the discussion we had about churches, is all the civic organizations and civic clubs and homeowners associations we have in Third Ward. I'm sure they're involved and going to get involved more once they understand and know what's happening. But they have been a force for good and a force for slowing things down also over the years. So are they coming to you? Are y'all reaching out to them to get involved?
So actually, both. In our very first project that we had for the lot, we did we cleared the lot, but we also did a call for volunteers. And one of the groups that came and volunteered was the Washington Terrace Civic Association.
Oh yeah, they're very engaged.
And so they're right here where our project is. So we've been talking to them about what it is that we're planning on doing and inviting them to the table.
Good.
They came out and did a tree giveaway. So we were working hand in hand.
Right.
We are very active because that's where we're based. We're very active with them. We're also tied in with the Third Ward Super Neighborhood.
Oh yeah.
So the president of the Super Neighborhood is actually involved with the council. And so what we're trying to do is, again, be accessible. We understand that everybody is not always going to agree. Everybody is not always going to feel like, hey, I want to do it this way, and that's okay, but the door is open and the opportunity to educate is there.
That's why I'm so glad the council is being formed that can pull together this coalition of organizations. There's so many organizations and groups and factions and stuff going on in Third Ward. It's not for a lack of activity and people involved. It's just never been coordinated.
Right.
And it's never been looked at, as you use the word ecosystem, it's never been looked at in total. It's been looked at in pieces of the puzzle here and there. But to have a group that now can help people understand the bigger picture and understand how all this stuff works together and how it all fits together is, I think, very, very important to have. Before we run out of time, I want you to tell people how they can get in contact with you and your organization. And then I'll give you a couple of minutes quickly for closing comments.
So the place where it's easiest to get a hold of us is actually Facebook. You can send a request to join the Do the Things That Matter Facebook group. So if you go on Facebook and you go in the little search, put in Do the Things That Matter group, and we'll pop up and join, and you can be a part of it. Also, if you want to reach out to me, I'm available. My email is Brittany, BRITTANY @reallinkllc.com.
So give us a quick summation or closing thoughts and comments as we go forward here.
So in closing, the Third Ward Real Estate Council is available to individuals who want to learn more about urban planning and who want to learn about how to do community development in an actionable way, and to be able to pull together thoughts, resources. If you have ideas, if you have topics that you want to learn more about, please get involved. And we're here. There's a plan, and we're actively moving forward.
I have two more questions, which is important. When does the 11,000 square foot block open up?
So right now, we've just cleared the lot. We are right now planning a demonstration on it. So we're planning a charrette. And when we have the charrette, and I'll send that information to you as well for the date. And that'll be a good opportunity for people to come out. And for those who don't know what a charrette is, we're basically just going to mark out the area so you can come out and envision what it's going to look like. And at that time, we'll be able to talk more about the timeline
Okay.
and where things are with it.
Good. So what's the next big project after the opening of the 11,000 square foot?
We're always actively looking for projects. We're in the process of just sort of surveying.
So people can bring you their ideas about projects.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because I think there's while, well, we could go in another half hour here, but while the land is still available, different parcels of land in Third Ward, before it's all bought up, and Emancipation Boulevard is going to be a hot spot going forward for businesses and things open. As much of it as we can keep in the community control, I think is very important.
Yeah, and I think, thank you for saying that, because one thing that I want people to know is that we are very serious about keeping Third Ward. So any property that we acquire, invest in, well, the council cannot acquire property, but any
Right.
property that we are involved in or have any involvement in, it is for the purpose of maintaining it for the community and making sure that it is available for the community, and also affordable. And that doesn't mean that every property is an affordable community.
Right.
Where we can make things affordable, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for transformation, not transactions. And so there are a lot of times people have family property and they're like, I don't want to deal with it, but I also don't want to give it away. I would ask them to encourage them to consider the council as a place to come and talk about what it could be.
Very good. I had a little more time than I thought. That's why I came back to you with some questions. This artificial thing created a few years ago, we only got about a minute. This artificial thing created a few years ago called Midtown that infringed on the boundaries of Third Ward. Mm-hmm. So the boundaries of Third Ward has shifted in the minds of some people, but it really hasn't shifted in reality because it's still Third Ward. You can call it what you want to call it, but it's still part of Third Ward. So how is that going in the mindset of people as we talk about going forward?
I think you have to be very careful when it comes to, I think this goes back to investment and where resources come from and where they go. And you have to be careful when people create things or invest in things, but don't take the time to do more than check the box in terms of what the community wants. Right. And so I think that you have to be mindful of why people are funding things, how they're funding them.
You're right. I think the word I always like to use in combination connected to each other is being mindful and intentional. Right. I think mindfulness and intentionality will take you a long way. Because people really need you really look at the motives behind things, look at the real reason, and who's doing what, and who's actually funding what, and where's the capital. Always say, follow the money.
Follow the money every time.
Where's the capital coming from? Simple as that. All right, we got to go. Brittany, thank you very much for being on Dialogue Houston.
Thank you so much.
We're going to follow the work of the council, that's for sure. All right, let me get out of here. So good being with everyone this week. Look forward to you joining us on future segments of Dialogue Houston. And until then, as always, stay well, be safe, and peace, power, and love.